Dear participants, a very good evening to all of you, and I extend a very warm welcome to the erudite panelists on behalf of Principal Dr. Naik, on behalf of Principal Dr. Ramkrishna Tale and Principal Dr. Sanjay Singh. We'll start the panel discussion immediately, and in the end, Dr. Sanjay Singh will propose a vote of thanks. Eastern philosophy and the West is the theme for today's webinar, and there has always been a great attraction and interaction between the East and the West in several respects and at several levels. Eastern philosophy is an umbrella term that we are using here, and we know that several trains and several paths are sheltered under it. We can say that it guides us through various paths and various ways. There is a lot of diversity, we're aware of it. The core of Eastern philosophy is that it is meant for human beings and not just for human beings. In some cases, it extends to every living being, every object of thought, all thinking things, all non-thinking things, if I am to use words with words. So basically, this temporal divide between the East and West and North and South doesn't really exist at the core level of the philosophy. There is just one whole. And so it becomes very interesting to perceive the different perspectives and interpretations associated with the Eastern philosophy. And it is with this view, under the leadership of Dr. Naik, this webinar has been organized. With deep gratitude to our management, our faculty and staff, and Dr. Pandey, Dr. Pal, all the participants. Let's begin this webinar. I invite Dr. Sharma to initiate, introduce, and start the panel discussion. Over to Dr. Ram Sharma.
Yeah, thank you, sir, Dr. Akhilesh PSVG. And it's our great privilege to have such personalities like Professor Caroline Heising, Casey Hughes. Casey Hughes is the third richest person of California, and his life is his message. He has lived materialistic life in his youth. He has been a great surfer, run 3 computer companies, and now he is running Temple of Joy at Encinitas. He is associated with Ananda, the branch of Paramahansa Yogananda, and I consider him the epitome, modern epitome of Paramahansa Yogananda. He is fully devoted to his mission of spirituality. He is doing satsanga, doing meditations, giving lectures on spirituality, and he is leading so many persons and guiding so many persons in US nowadays. And his life is his message, is a message for all of us. Swami Vivekananda has written that in 20th century, the Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma will be more in US than in India. And these persons are reflecting, not only reflecting, but proving what Swami Vivekananda has written. So first, I would like to invite Casey Hughes to bless us directly from his Temple of Joy, bless us by his enlightened talk.
Thank you, Dr. Ram Sharma. It's a pleasure to be a part of this illustrious group, and I'm honored that you would have me. And to all of the organizers, again, my heartfelt thank you for your efforts to bring us together here today, and to all of you that have joined together here with me. I beg your forgiveness for anything I might say that may differ from your experience or from your understandings, because as the great doctor had opened with the statement that although we all come from the one light of God, that light shines in many colors. And it's up to each of us to find the one that resonates within our own heart, such that we can all return back to him in a path that resonates well for us individually. My path, as you've heard, has come materially in the physical world of the West, through physics. I studied physics at the University of California. I got my degree in quantum electrodynamics in 1975. At that time, I was also realizing the universe had some marvelous characteristics. The deeper you went into the atom, the more expansive your view of the universe became. And so it was that I turned my microscope inward and began to look within myself to learn more about everything else. So I'll share with you some of these teachings. What I'm going to share on my desktop here is available to all of you. I will send this to Dr. Ram Sharma, the PDF file. You're welcome to share it in any way you choose. You're welcome to ignore it as well. So let me go ahead and begin by sharing my screen. I want to show something to each of you first. I'm wondering if you are aware of this, of what's going on.
Yeah, Varanasi is a project of co-creating the temples at Varanasi.
If you can confirm for me, Dr. Sharma, that you can see this temple in Varanasi?
Yeah, this is visible, yes.
Okay. Many of you may not know, but right now, Varanasi is undergoing a tremendous transformation under the support of the Honorable Narendra Modi, of course, our Prime Minister of India. This is a temple that has been unearthed from the bowels, the basement of a residential building that was built around it, and in effect, hiding it from all of humanity. This project is known as the Kashi Vishwanath Corridor Project Phase 1. And this project is being managed by a great friend and gentleman, Mr. Vishal Singh. Let me come back in. I'm going to stop sharing and share another window here. The reason I share that with you is I'm going to come back and talk to this here in just one moment. For now, let me share this part of my screen. I trust this can be seen, Dr. Sharma?
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay, very good. I'm titling my talk here briefly, Quantum Consciousness, where spiritual science of the East meets the physical science of the West. And I might recommend that all of us keep the audio muted during the talk to avoid any feedback. Today, I'd like us to together uplift our energies into that light of our inner sun, because what happens within us is a reflection of what's happening around us. We know from the Eastern traditions that our bodies are not just material things, but they are energy. And there are energy centers we refer to as chakras. And those chakras represent our own solar system within our body. They speak volumes about how our body operates and how we can, in fact, maintain balance within the physical life by holding true to the spiritual truths and the spiritual laws. I'll speak a bit about some of these. I want to point out, though, that as we heard in the opening, it has been millenniums since the East and the West have coexisted. Eastern spirituality was directed inward into consciousness, to bring that consciousness back home, if you will, to reunite one's consciousness with the infinite ocean of consciousness from whence it came. Western science was almost the reverse. It was inside out. It was outward looking in a mechanistic way. It saw the universe as a machine, the body as a machine, made up of many small parts, and had spent many years trying to understand the workings of the universe and the body by dissecting it into its individual parts. Of course, we know once we dissect anything into its individual parts, it ceases to be the wholeness that it once was. For centuries, these two philosophies, these perspectives, coexisted seemingly with irreconcilable perspectives. They were almost opposite. And now we've reached a point that we can marvel at in our own lifetime, because throughout human history, there have been countless accounts existing of everyday people having experiences far beyond the limits of what was thought possible. Some examples, of course, have been shown by the saints and sages of all religions, many coming from the soil of India, many coming from Europe. These miracles performed were thought to be something supernatural. Today, there are over 3,000 near-death experiences that have been well documented, even in the last half a century, of people who have left the body, who have experienced the beyond, the astral realm, if you will, sharing those experiences and showing them to be all very significantly similar. There are over 3,500 references of spontaneous healings of some of the most profound diseases known to man: cancer, stage 5, strokes, heart failures, AIDS, diabetes. The list is endless. And yet there are many, many references that have been well documented through the Institute of Noetic Science in over 8 journals in 20 languages that have shown that there is something going on more than what the current modern medicine can explain. So we are now at the precipice of an age of expanded human potential. We are not what we have been told in the past. We are so much more. In fact, we are saints having a human experience. And as Jesus had said in the Bible, "Be still and know that ye are gods." And it's out of that stillness that we can come into contact, direct personal contact with that divine nature within us, what I like to call, as my great Guru David often said, our own portable paradise. So I ask you, when will you begin to free yourself of all past limiting beliefs and become that supernatural being that is your birthright? And this is the challenge that I'm putting in front of each and every one of us. I have here a vow of superconscious living that I would leave it to you to read and to enjoy and perhaps to internalize, if you're willing and ready to become that great supernatural being that you are, far beyond the limitations of the narrative of the mind that might tell you that you are something less. Again, these slides will be shared with you, and so I'm going to move quickly through them, but I hope that we have a chance perhaps to answer questions and talk more toward the end. So it is that I believe that we can create a better life for ourselves, our loved ones, and for all, by shifting from the linear way of thinking, the cause-effect, the mechanistic view of the world that was really maintained and put forth by Western beliefs, and move from that linear mechanistic life into a multi-dimensional existence, one more in alignment with truth, one more in alignment with what we now understand in modern science. The spiritual science in the West has been put forth mostly by the proliferation of the original science of yoga as brought to us by the great Bhagavan Krishna. Of course, we've had many Eastern wonderful teachers who have come to the West, beginning with Swami Vivekananda in the late 1800s, And 100 years ago, my own Gurudev coming to America in 1920 to again bring the teachings of yoga. But as Yogananda had said, the goal was to calm the mind, that without its distortion, one may hear the infallible counsel of the inner voice. You know, Patanjali, the great sage of India, who himself wrote the Yoga Sutras from the soil of what is now known as Varanasi. In his second Yoga Sutra, he said, Yogas chitta vritti narod. He said, yoga is the neutralization of the disturbances of the mind. And so it is that as we can calm the mind, as we can quiet the mind, as we can go deeply inward, as we have been taught by the Eastern sages for millennium, we can begin to know our greatest potential. We can in fact heal all diseases. We can in fact tune our consciousness to the infinite consciousness available to us all the time, from which infinite reservoirs of energy reside, infinite wisdom resides. You want to solve a problem? Go inward, meditate for 2 minutes, ask for the guidance. It will come to you. The great Western scientist, a physicist himself, Nikola Tesla, once had said, the day that science begins to study this non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of all mankind's existence. Imagine that. If we want to solve world hunger, are we going to ultimately do it by studying agriculture and learning how to grow more food? No. In fact, today we are throwing away half of the world's food production, while we have millions on this planet who go to bed hungry every night. Our problem is not that we have not enough food. We can solve all of these more readily through the ancient science of yogic teachings than we can through the mechanistic science that we have followed for many years here in the West. Because, of course, human life is beset with sorrows. We know that there is nothing but Maya that is dominant within this physical realm. As a physicist, we called it polarity. Every atom has an up and a down. Every joy will have a sorrow. Every love has hatred. Every light has darkness. This is the law of this plane of existence. It will not change. We come here to be able to leverage this law of duality and fall into the center of our being, back to the inner center of our energy bodies, and tune ourselves to a higher reality beyond duality. All the great science of the West, Einstein, Heisenberg, Max Planck, Werner, all the great scientists in the early 19th century realized this and began to look deeply into the universe, whether it was from a cosmological standpoint, the macro view, or the atomic perspective, the micro view. But either view lent the same perspective, that there was a unified field, a unified energy source that was inextricable and unexplainable by traditional mechanistic science. I'll share with you just a couple of brief examples of this. The physical science is now moving into the spiritual science. For the first time in our history, East and West provide the world, mankind, with the most complete picture of the universe. Both are necessary, and together they form a profound understanding, beginning with the notion that all thought creates matter. You know, it wasn't that long ago, in fact, in early 1800s, when a great mathematician scientist put forth this experiment called the double slit experiment. It was an experiment where he passed light through through a piece of cardboard with two little slits in it, and he wanted to see what would light act like. Would it be a particle? Would it look like little BBs, so to speak, little marbles that went through two particles that would form two perfect slits on the other side, acting as particles? Or would it be a wave? Would on the other side of those twin slits, would it show multiple stripes like waves propagating through space? Well, in that experiment, he learned that light was both, and it operated both simultaneously. But what was most interesting is when it was observed, it always acted as a wave. And so it is. As intelligent observers, we are using our thoughts to create waveforms that produce realities around us. Your brain activates through your thoughts electric currents. Now, these currents are electrons moving across these synapses of your neural your nerves within your brain, the neural pathways created, and as those electrons move across those synapses, they create fields, electric fields. That's a fundamental in physics. Moving charges create fields. Your heart, at the same time, the center of emotion, what I like to say, energy in motion, also through your feelings are generating electrical currents that generate magnetic fields. And when you can bring your heart-mind activity together through the intention of thought combined with feelings of the heart, you create what's called intuition. And it's this intuition that can now be measured in the lab. We have sensitive instruments now that can actually measure your electromagnetic field that your thoughts are creating. And we can tell you specifically what its characteristics are. Your field is what's communicating or sharing information with the astral field beyond this plane of duality. We call it the astral realm. It's within that astral realm that your consciousness resided prior to assuming a physical body. And it's back into that ocean of consciousness that you will remerge as you leave this mortal coil. You are communicating with that realm constantly. And what's interesting is today, the material science of the West is able to study this phenomena. We know that these fields generated by our own thoughts are communicating with this quantum field. And this is what's affecting our genetics, our ability to self-heal, our ability to tune in to realities far beyond what our five sense instruments can provide us. We, in effect, can draw from this quantum field our own physical reality. This is how you can live a miraculous life, by tuning your consciousness to that quantum field. Now, that's a Western scientific term to use, quantum field. In the Vedic tradition, we would refer to it as the astral realm. But in essence, our thoughts create matter. I can show you this time and again. Quite simply, tell yourself when you wake up in the morning how tired you are. Lay in bed and think, I am so tired. Oh, I'm tired. I just don't want to get up out of bed. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to school. I'm just so tired. I'm going to lay here and sleep longer. I'm so tired. Guess what happens? Yeah, you'll be tired. Tell yourself you're sick. I don't feel well. My stomach aches. Oh, I just have no energy. Boy, do I feel horrible. Tell yourself that over and over again, and you will create that reality. You will, in fact, take on the physical symptoms of being sick. On the other hand, if you choose to, when you wake up first thing in the morning, tell yourself how energetic you are. how excited you are to begin the day, how you can't wait to get to your next class or to your job, how much you enjoy your life. And guess what? You're establishing a rhythm of vibration that is resonating into the astral realm, a magnetism that will attract those very things that your thoughts are thinking about. This works very simply and very mechanistically through the brain's neurotransmitters. These are what are actually these chemical messengers. These are what's translating information throughout your body through the synapses of your neurons, the brain cells. Examples are the serotonin that you produce in the pituitary gland. This is what helps you to wake in the morning. It is actually moving the frequencies of your brain from delta states to theta into beta. Varying wave frequencies operating within your brain, varying your thought patterns and affecting your entire body. During the evening, as you grow tired, that same molecular structure of serotonin can transmute itself into something we call melatonin. This helps us prepare to sleep. Again, it moves us from the beta into the alpha state, slowing our brain waves and leading us into sleep. So again, examples of how we are physical bodies bounded by the space-time dimension of this physical reality, and yet we are masters of our bodies. We can control our thoughts if we get control over our minds. And we do that through the ancient yogic science. I've been practicing meditation for 40 years. I've been teaching it for 30 in India and in America. And I will tell you, I'm a living example of this. I'm my own experiment. I'm 67 years old and I've never had more energy. I feel 40 years younger. By changing the consciousness of the gross material body into consciousness in attunement with the astral realm, the quantum verse, as I call it, you can in fact affect your own physical body. You can live a more full, rich life. Now, this is a great example in the West. You know, many go to a psychologist or seek help saying, I want greater awareness, but can I continue to be unaware of my bad qualities? I tell people, it doesn't quite work that way. If we maintain outer self-awareness, we will continue to draw our energy outward in the material sense and lose contact to the inner realities of our own superconsciousness. In essence, we have a choice, don't we? We can live life as a drama, or we can live life as dharma, the highest truth. In the Bible, Jesus said, you know, ignorance is not bliss. This is a statement my mom used to tell me, you know, ignorance is bliss. I said, no, it's not. He says, for whomever has known himself, who has not known himself, has known nothing. But whoever has known himself has simultaneously achieved knowledge about the depth of all things. See, this has come from all religions. This is written in the Vedas, the Rig Veda, the first time that the world was given a preview of yogic science, and in the Bible for Christianity, all expressing the same truth. If your consciousness is centered outwardly in the material world, then you'll take on the qualities of that outer material world. Become more aware of the source of your awareness. Tune to that divine nature within, your own portable paradise. Because when I am aware, when I am noticing and witnessing without attachment, then my thoughts and feelings and experience are filled with peace and joy, and I become present in the here and now. The great Lahiri Mahashaya had said you can solve all your problems through meditation. Attune yourself to the active inner guidance, because the divine voice has the answer to every dilemma of life. So what shall you do? You have trouble coming to decisions throughout life, committing yourself to something? Well, develop that inner strength. Exercise it as you would a muscle. The muscle of concentration, drawing the attention to the spiritual eye, is not different than any other muscle of the body. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Regular practice of meditation will energize you with that divine reality, infuse every cell of your body with that energy, with that awareness, with that health and well-being. Quantum consciousness truly is the center of your being. If you want to bring the light, open your blinds. Focus your attention within. You'll feel a new power, a new strength, and a new peace in your body, in your mind, in your soul. This is what the East and West have brought to bear for us all. Science today, coupled with the ancient spiritual science brought by the Vedas and the Upanishads, has now given us this complete picture of reality. Live it and make your life perfect. Thank you for listening to me, and I turn it back to the Honorable Dr. Ram Sharma.
हेलो
हेलो
राम शर्मा सर डिस्कनेक्ट हो गए मे बी हेलो उन्नति मैम हेलो
Yes.
Hello.
उन्नति मैडम राम शर्मा सर डिस्कनेक्ट हो गए तो शुड वी कंटिन्यू विथ अनदर स्पीकर
Yes, I will just call him one. Just wait.
कनेक्टेड नाउ राम शर्मा सर नाउ कनेक्टेड
Okay.
हेलो राम शर्मा सर हेलो
Sharma sir, invite the next speaker.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm starting. Our next speaker is Professor Caroline Heising. She is the Kriyabandh and a old devotee of Paramahansa Yogananda, and she is the torch bearer in US. She was born at Santiago City, and she got education at Santiago. Later on, she went to California State University, and she completed her PhD from Massachusetts, from Stanford University, and later she moved to MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I would like to quote the words of our friend Phil Goldberg, who has written in his book, American Veda. I am quoting Phil Goldberg. Today in America, limber men and women stride up the street carrying yoga mats. Doctors and therapists recommend meditation to manage stress. Newscasters toss out words like mantra and guru. Pop songs and TV shows refer to karma. Now I invite Caroline Heising to bless us by her words.
Good evening to all of you, and I'm going to talk about the East and the West and philosophy, and I'm going to focus mostly on Ramana Maharshi, because Ramana Maharshi is considered to be a type of yogi who is connected to the highest levels of wisdom. And in a very simple way, Ramana Maharshi, in this particular very brief pamphlet, captures the entire philosophy of the East. And the central question Ramana Maharshi asks is, who am I? And through self-inquiry, you can answer that question. Now, as Casey just told you, in the West, the answer to that question is that you are a machine. In the West, the philosophy says that you are the body, that you're nothing more than this body. And therefore, Western medicine focuses on each part of the body, and you have a doctor for your heart. When you get to be my age and Casey's age, we're the same age, you start having many doctors because the body starts to go. So you're going to have a doctor for your eyes, a doctor for your brain, a doctor for your heart, a doctor for your lungs. Pretty soon you have a doctor for every part of the body because the body decays and it dies. So the problem for the West is that the answer to who am I is not a very nice answer. And the answer that the East provided is in the ancient philosophy of the Vedic rishis. And Maharishi, Sri Ramana Maharshi, is known to have been a yoga avatar of that philosophy and how he lived in a very simple way. And he was very close to my guru, who is the same guru as Casey, Paramahansa Yogananda, visited Ramana Maharshi in 1935 after he visited Mahatma Gandhi. But it was known at that time that Maharshi was an embodiment of Eastern philosophy. And if you went to his ashram in the south of India, he would be sitting on a platform surrounded by his cellos. And they used the self-inquiry method in meditation to delve into what the rishis have always said, which is that the answer to who am I is not that it is that you are the body, but that you are awareness. And in this text, one of the Brahmins who went to visit Ramana Maharshi, who then created this pamphlet, asked Ramana Maharshi, what is the nature of awareness? And he gave the answer that the sages of India have always given, which is, it is Sat Chit Ananda. That is Sat, existence, Chit, consciousness, and Ananda is translated very poorly into the English word bliss. So stick with the Sanskrit that who you are and what you are is awareness. You are Sat Chit Ananda. And you can only become self-aware through testing this yourself through meditation. and through going inside. You're not going to find this in the outer world per se. You aren't going to be able to spend thousands of rupees or dollars on seminars that are going to enlighten you. You have to do the work yourself. The East tells you, and Casey mentioned Patanjali, who is considered the father of yoga in the text. You have to do the work yourself. No one, not even your own guru, can enlighten you. You must enlighten yourself. And so that is the basic of the Eastern philosophy. And why is the West inferior? Why is the Western philosophy incorrect? Because Descartes, René Descartes, a French philosopher who is known for the theory of rationality, equated who you are with your mind. I think, therefore I am. That is a flawed logical statement. I think, therefore I am. That is a mistake on the part of the West. It is a mistake to think that you are your body or your mind alone. So the East has a superior philosophy based on the self-realization of countless rishis, countless saints and sages who still exist in India and have also gone to other parts of the world, and now Westerners are learning the truth, and Westerners are following the ancient rishis. You know, as Casey mentioned, our Guru Paramahansa Yogananda came to America in 1920, 100 years ago. Prior to him, we had Swami Vivekananda in 1893. And since that time, many Indian saints have come to America, including Amma, the hugging saint of Kerala, and many others who are continuing to bring the message and the light of the East to the West. So as you know, the United Nations set up an International Day of Yoga, which is this month in June. And your Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has been a major force in getting that International Day of Yoga recognized by the world in the United Nations. So India is still leading the way in the spiritual field. I also have, Dr. Ram asked me to show you some of the books I use. And of course, Casey mentioned some of the great saints of India. And Nanda Mahima was a contemporary of Paramahansa Yogananda. And when Yogananda went to India in 1935, he spent time with her. So she's another exemplar of the embodiment of the Eastern philosophy in an actual body. And one of the things that Anandamayi Ma always said, she would refer to this body and specifically would, through her own use of language, indicate that she was not the body. She was a great soul within this body. And I have visited her Mahasamadhi shrine in Haridwar. with Dr. Ram. And so, as you know, she is a tremendous example of Eastern philosophy embodied in a saint and a tremendous teacher. So, as far as going back to Ramana Maharshi, I would recommend this little pamphlet, Who Am I?, which is available through his ashrama in 2 Ruths and Alma. And you can get it through Amazon online. If you're really interested in a very condensed form of what the central tenet of Eastern philosophy is, read this. For example, question number 28, what is liberation? In one sentence, Ramana Maharshi tells you that it's inquiring into the nature of oneself that is in bondage, and realizing one's true nature is liberation. You are liberation. And another question, what is the difference between inquiry and meditation? Inquiry consists in retaining the mind in the self, capital S. Meditation consists in thinking that oneself is Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss. So through inquiry, through concentration, one can retain the mind in the true self. So very profound questions are asked in this pamphlet with very succinct and simple answers by the master. One of the most revered masters, our Guru Paramahansa Yogananda, stated that Maharishi was an avatar of Buddhism, and so if you are interested, that is a very nice little pamphlet to have. To me, when my own personal studies of Eastern philosophy, I find that pamphlet to be extremely succinct and contains within it the basics. And all of us are looking and searching for who we are. And the East has the answer. Now, you know, Alexander the Great came, he was one of the first Westerners to actually end up in India because he was trying to conquer the world. And there's a story that he got into India and he met these sages, such as Ramana, who don't wear, you know, they're very sitting at the river and they're doing meditation and upright on a horse, Alexander the Great, and they get into a dialogue. And they find out that Alexander, they go, why are you here? And he says, I'm trying to conquer the world. And Rishi answered Alexander and said to him, they started laughing at him. And it was the East laughing at the West. Because the Rishi said, how can you conquer the world when you cannot conquer yourself? How can a man or woman imagine they're going to conquer the world if they can't conquer themselves? So that's, in a nutshell, the East versus the West. And Alexander the Great ended up taking the Rishi as his guru, and he started to take him back to Babylon. That Rishi passed away by going into a funeral pyre, And he sat there, and the Macedonian army watched him and immolate in the fire and flame. So even Alexander the Great knew that within those rishis that he met was a superior wisdom. And from that point on, the West has realized, many of the most brilliant people in the West have realized that Western philosophy does not have the answer. We are not machines, and have sought out Eastern teachers and gurus such as Paramahansa Yogananda, and we're chelas. We have become chelas, devotees, and we are becoming yogis. So that's all I have to say to you today. I do again hold up to you who I consider in recent times at least to be one of the great sages and teachers of Eastern philosophy. And therefore I'm going to end my talk by just encouraging you to read some of his teaching. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Dr. Adriana. She was born in Romania. Later on, she switched to Greece, and she is a radiologist. From March, we are discussing about this crisis, Corona crisis, and it is her words, which is I am quoting in every webinar. And she said that India cannot be defeated from Corona. And Dr. Adriana is from Greece, from where great Alexander has come to win India. So I welcome Dr. Adriana. I want to inform one more thing. She is writing one book about Eastern philosophy or about India. So I welcome Dr. Adriana. Please bless us by your enlightened talk.
हेलो मैम, अनम्यूट कीजिए आप.
Yes, thank you so much. Namaste. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, in the wake of a global pandemics, we were given the opportunity to ponder on major issues of human life. It was an unexpected event which somehow found us unprepared. We were unprepared here in Greece. People were unprepared in India. Nobody could imagine of something like this happening. It was a surprise of colossal dimensions. But in the same time, in the isolation of the quarantine, many of us were given the opportunity to think. Now, regarding today, I am happy that somehow Mr. Casey Hughes, Honorable Mr. Casey Hughes, has opened the path for me, and I am talking after his introduction. He just paved my way, and by speaking about the differences between the Eastern and the Western manner of thinking. Now, one of the basic characteristics of the Western thought and of the Western contemporaneous psychology is the denial of death and the neurotic chase of eternal youth. These are non-realistic purposes. By contrast, the Eastern philosophy had the phenomenon of death as a central event in a chain of successive lives that would be lived either in a state of dharma or in a state of adharma, and would bring the respective consequences. Now, I will now present a brief description of my life and of the consecutive steps that made me become a Hindu to convert to Hinduism. We all know more or less what the communist experiment was. It was just a brief accident of history that endured less than a century and collapsed. It began in 1917 in Russia, and it stopped in 1989 in Russia again, and 1990. It was a very short episode, and the causes of this failure are more or less known. But at its center, one could discern a major factor that described this short-lived system. It was atheism. Furthermore, it was militant atheism. The nucleus of revolutionary were presiding over a movement which wanted to uproot religion from the life of the people. This state of mind led with a mathematical precision to a massive loss of heart in the population in all these communist countries. People didn't want to continue living without thinking about the divine. There was a need of religion in their lives. Furthermore, the cultured people in these countries were facing even more problems. On one hand, they wanted to reject atheism and wanted to return to religion. On the other hand, the traditional religion of Europe had intrinsic inconsistencies and flaws and couldn't answer any longer to the basic questions that every intelligent human being must pose. And so the survivors of communism found themselves in an empty space. The question stayed with them, and they had to find answers, because questions of such importance, when not answered, turn into neurosis and poison the mind. The only area of knowledge that could be explored was the area of the Oriental religions. It was the last hope for the cultured people of Europe, and it is the last hope at this moment. And then, faced with the multiplicity of streams that the Oriental religions display, various groups of Westerners chose various paths. Some of them converted to Vaishnavism and centered their lives around the Bhakti dynamics. They would follow a movement that put emphasis on the cultivation of feelings. Others put emphasis on yoga and worked with their bodies. But the truth is, the spiritual needs of the cultured Westerners still need to be fed with knowledge, and India definitely has the potential of providing this knowledge. Why? Because the Hindu spirituality has the needed level of information, has the sufficient quantity of data that can be put together, and the result is the correct understanding of the functioning of the universe and the place that the human being occupies in the universe. These are areas that have been explored by the Hindu sages throughout the ancient era, and it is a fact they were really forward. They were the icebreakers of a process. They were thinkers, they were seers, and they provided us with information. This was in brief the fate of the communist and of the atheist countries, and this was the manner in which I started my journey that led me toward Hinduism. There is a sort of diffusion of knowledge from the east to the west, but it has to be enriched, it has to be enlarged. And so, after years of study, I came to the conclusion that I have to complete my work, a work that is big enough, is large enough. It is a book of 1,000 pages. Of course, it is small when compared to the volume of the Hindu knowledge, but it is a sort of a bridge that I started to throw between the two cultures. This is it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. And what you have said to us, every word is, I think, We have to think very, very deep. And thank you very much for your book, which you are writing about Hinduism.
I try to stay on the reality of the needs of Europe. Europe needs an enlargement of spiritual horizons. And there is a sort of a reciprocal completion if the realistic manner of thinking that we have developed in the West will be bridged and brought in contact with the large knowledge of the East. The result will be knowledge for all the planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. I would like to quote the words of Henry David Thoreau, and he said, "In the morning I bathe my intellect in the spenduous and cosmogonal philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seems tiny and trivial." Our next speaker is Susumna Kannanji, Dr. Susumna Kannanji. Is she available? Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, yes, she is.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah. So I'm reading his introduction, her introduction, sorry. Susumna Kannan has a PhD in Cultural Studies from Center for the Study of Culture and Society, Bangalore, India. Her research on South Asian devotional traditions and feministic epistemology focused on the medieval saint Akka Mahadevi and her Vachanas. She received the Bourse Mira French Research Fellowship in 2006 and 2007 and the Sir Ratan Tata Fellowship for PhD coursework and writing in 2003 and 2007. She has published her research on Bhakti, Dharamsastras, ethics, women writing in Kannada and English, and on translation of theory in peer-reviewed journals and as book chapters. She is currently working on a book project on Hinduism and violence forthcoming in 2020. She was formerly adjunct faculty at Department of Women's Studies at Santiago State University, Santiago, USA, and is currently an independent scholar based in Santiago, USA. I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Now?
Yes.
Um, okay. So I'm going to be reading a paper. Firstly, I'd like to thank all of you for having me. So I'll be speaking on the topic given to me by the organizers, which is how the West perceives Eastern philosophy. In many ways, I think this is a meta-level question. The underlying problem invoked by the question, to my mind, is why and how the West perceives Eastern philosophy, often incorrectly, and marginalizes it, and how this can be corrected. The attempt I'm making will be to be critical of the relationship between Eastern and Western philosophy and not celebratory. While it is true that yoga and mindfulness meditation have been popular in the West for their discernible benefits, there is much work necessary to make Eastern philosophy truly relevant. Before taking up these questions that I listed a moment ago, the meaning of the terms we are using must be clarified. Let's begin with Let's begin by asking, what is philosophy? Philosophy is an investigation of the truths and principles of being, knowledge, and conduct. It's a study of the fundamental and ultimate nature of knowledge, reality, and existence. And the purpose of philosophy is to ask basic questions. Next, we must ask what we mean by the West or the East. I think the distinction itself is Western and homogenizing, because on what basis do we classify West and East? It's also quite archaic, the distinction. Nevertheless, we could use these terms, but they need sufficient qualifiers. The West is not one homogeneous identity, but it is diverse, as the East is as well. Not all Western philosophy has viewed Eastern philosophy incorrectly. In fact, some of the best clarifications about Eastern philosophy have all come from the West, its academics and its research programs. What this means then is that anyone could be committing the fallacies of viewing Eastern philosophies through a Western lens. You don't have to be a Westerner, or you don't have to be living in the West to commit these fallacies when you view Eastern philosophy a certain way. What I'm trying to say is that it is ultimately about certain habits of thinking, some lazy work, and sometimes removing texts out of context and inadequate research. So what I'm saying is that an Eastern individual could be committing the Western fallacy. Now, what does Eastern philosophy mean? Typically, it includes Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and other philosophies that emerged in South and East Asia. The classification actually has little explanatory value because it's merely a geographical indicator. So again, when we use the term, the context in which we are using it and the qualifications we are bringing to the discussion will matter a lot. So the term Eastern philosophy by itself does not shed light on how these different philosophies, that is Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, stand vis-a-vis each other. So it just invokes more discussion rather than offering clarification. So it's a term that we must use carefully. The question how the West perceives Eastern philosophy is significant because it is evident that the West has perceived Eastern philosophies incorrectly for at least a century now, and corrective measures are still underway. This is not to say, again, that there are no positive perceptions. Nevertheless, the problem underlying the question posed prompts the following corollary questions. How and why the West perceives Eastern philosophy incorrectly, and how can we correct this? Let us first answer the how question. Indian philosophy is intertwined with several other forms of exploration. Science, religion, and other disciplines are mixed. This has often led the West to wonder if there was ever philosophical inquiry in the West. In the East, or whether religion encompassed all inquiries. But of late, this problem has been solved through sensitive approaches. The basis of this perception, it has now been discovered, lies in the West's own opposition of myth versus reality versus rationality, and religion versus science. This is up for questioning today. This myth and rationality and religion versus science. Doubting the existence of philosophy in the East might be one reason why Eastern philosophy is still not mainstream. It is the other of philosophy, which is mainly Western, and there is no equal relationship between the two. Eastern philosophy is often excluded or is a supplement added to the West or added to the study of Western philosophy. It's an elective in courses and is treated separately, ignoring the knowledge exchange that was there in pre-modern eras. What is typically classified as Eastern philosophy is problematic as well. It often excludes large aspects or overlooks important moments. For instance, the 6 schools of Hindu philosophy are more likely to be regarded as philosophy rather than the logic underlying Vedic ritual. And this is changing today. There is also an exaggeration of the differences between different Eastern philosophies or an underplaying of the similarities between them. For example, Buddhism and Jainism are considered as separate religions that are rational, whereas Hinduism is a magico-realistic one. 19th century Indologists regarded Eastern philosophy as irrational. For example, Max Muller called the Puranas silly, senseless, and savage, and the Abbé Dubois called all the 18 major Puranas equally futile. What this means is that there is a violence in the Western lens, which lies in questioning myths as if they were truth, offering false comparative analysis, for example, viewing Brahmins as obstructing direct access to God, just as the Christian priests did, viewing bhakti as a social reformist movement akin to Protestantism in the West, although bhakti did not seek to eradicate caste, and only emphasized on fervent devotion that ignored complex social taboos. And text-focused studies that ignored the context, like Lata Mani has shown to us about the practice of sati, and not recognizing the pluralism of the East and viewing it as a chaotic scenario. Viewing Eastern philosophy's non-normative ethics as the lack of morality, and disregarding the orality of Eastern philosophies, and therefore distorting the import of texts and practices. In short, not recognizing the philosophical problem not recognizing that philosophical problems are also shaped by host cultures. This is how the West has understood Eastern philosophies incorrectly. Now we come to the question, why does the West perceive Eastern philosophy incorrectly? One of the answers is, of course, colonialism. And this refers, of course, to the 19th century attempts to understand Eastern philosophies. In colonialism, interpretive possibilities in texts were exploited in order to show colonized countries in poor light, so as to help the colonizers' agendas. For example, citing Manusmriti extensively to show that women were ill-treated, although this text was not followed all over India. There were many other texts, and there was a certain regional flavor to the way culture and society was shaped, which was ignored. Another answer is missionary interest. Again, this is with reference to 19th century, but you could argue that this kind of continues today in very covert ways. Missionary interests portrayed Eastern philosophy as arising from ignorance. That is, idol worship, caste, non-monotheism, and so on, were considered as evils resulting from a corruption of what was once pure and Christian. Another answer is, of course, Orientalism, which Edward Said offers. Now, this means that there are forms of biases, prejudices, and exoticization resulting in the view of certain other cultures as static and unchanging. Edward Said shows how discourse proliferates from one source to another without empirical evidence. A fear and awe of Eastern cultures develops over time. This is Orientalism. Rooted, another answer provided by a European philosopher originating from India is S.N. Balagangadhara, who says that the West's misunderstanding of Eastern philosophy is a product of Western historical experience, of West's own experience, that it cannot help what it is doing. And this is, I think, a very interesting answer because it does not shift blame or it does not posit blame on Westerners. It's just that the Western lens is shaped by Westerners' history and its cultural experiences. Now, if we come to the question, how to correct the distortions, and I have a few practical suggestions and some theoretical suggestions for this. One thing to do is reconstructing Eastern philosophical works in contemporary language. So, for instance, Brahman, Atman, they're terms definitely, but what is the value assigned to them? What do they actually mean? That is something we still need to unravel. They are right now very opaque. They are just terms used within the discourse of Indian philosophy. We need to still understand what they actually mean. And another thing we must do is disengaging from insensitive literal readings and over readings of Eastern philosophical works. We must translate ancient and medieval sources more and more. And we must contextualize the concept of God in Eastern philosophies, which is unlike that of the religions. We must also recognize how Eastern religions are not religions in the Western sense of the term. We must critically assess anachronistic inquiries. We must build groups of sensitivity readers for Eastern philosophy. We must engage with practitioners of philosophy and religion. We must form religious studies departments because a lot of the interesting work that is getting done in the Western academia, is happening in religious studies departments, and we don't have that, which is a big lacuna in India. And then we have to increase the popularity of philosophy departments by making philosophers' skills transferable to South Asian industries, which will then incentivize the study of Eastern philosophy. Specifically, we must also do the following. Developing research programs that recognize Western philosophy's covered religious roots. So it is often thought that Eastern philosophy is mixed with religion, inextricably mixed with religion. But that is true to a certain extent for the West as well, because we are now able to see, for instance, that post-Enlightenment thought has been mixed with religious cultures of the period. A number of Western scholars themselves have produced this analysis. The next thing we must do is to develop comparative studies projects that focus on cultural differences and not just similarities. Post Edward Said, a similarities approach has dominated some disciplines because dividing the world between us and them was not a recommended approach. Now, what we miss when we just take a similarities approach is that the differences get submerged, and easy translations begin to take the place of some actual investigation. For instance, dharma becomes religion, and puja becomes worship, and so on. And this kind of project has been developed by S.N. Balagangadhara. Another thing we must do is to develop research programs that critique narrow historicist frameworks. as done by Adluri and Bagchi. Because historicism is a good bat to beat Eastern philosophy with any day. Because Eastern philosophy emerges from an ahistoricist culture, using historicism to ask, oh, how could your kings live for so long? And then debunking the entire corpus of Puranas, for instance. This kind of thing has gone on for too long, but we must understand how Indian texts are shaped and therefore remain sensitive to listening to where there is philosophy in these texts. Next, we must engage with linguistic and pre-modern literary history projects that include Sanskrit, Prakrit, Pali, and archaic versions of regional languages, as done by the Sheldon Pollock Research Program. Next, recognizing exactly how postmodernist philosophy, with its questioning of modernist ways of being, has opened up opportunities to validate tradition and Eastern philosophies. This is a project we must undertake. It is already underway. And then we must also use theorists who critique the West, like Derrida and Foucault, to attribute value to Eastern philosophy. Derrida's work, when extended, shows that Eastern philosophies are not metaphysical in the way that the Christian West is. While Foucault's work on sexuality shows that the East accesses experience sans discourse. Finally, I would like to say that the terms of discussion have changed a lot today, so that one could list numerous ways in which the West and Western scholars have corrected the discourse on Eastern philosophy. This corrective project, of course, will be ongoing and will have to be undertaken by everyone interested in philosophy, whether they are Eastern or Western, until all aspects of Eastern philosophy can be fully reconstructed. Perhaps the question we began with could simply be reformulated as follows. How must we approach Eastern philosophy? In the long run, academics everywhere need to be open to how Eastern material can redefine the very tasks of philosophy in a more grounded manner. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for your academic paper. Now I would like to invite and done her PhD in English literature, and later on she completed her PhD in psychology too. So Dr. Umathe ji, please bless us by your enlightened words. Hello. Umathe ji, are you? Yes. Yeah, you are audible. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Ram Sharma. Thank you, organizers, for having me here today. We found the Honorable Casey sir, who gave us the scientific explanation of consciousness, and Dr. Caroline, she gave the practical guidance how the gurus have laid the path for dharma experience. Andriane also put forth her journey to become, how she became a Hindu, and her journey was, is an example for so many to follow. And Dr. Kanan, who with her critical inquiry read her paper. So I will also share my view today on the Eastern philosophy and the West. The most important thing which I feel is that philosophy, yes, it is an inquiry so nicely. Our world is the greatest creation. There are many philosophies, and at places the words become very important, and each philosophies, they threaten to lose the world in its true essence. I am so thankful today to hear all of you. You talked of, how the East, how there's no geographical boundary. The East is known for its wisdom. It has been a land of seekers. The West has been influenced by it. Sir quoted the very great mind, Henry Thoreau, and I will quote Mark Twain. He has also given the best explanation of the East when he visited India. And he said, anything that can ever be done, either by man or God, has been done in this land. With this, the Eastern wisdom comes from the chitta, the consciousness. So this is the universal Sanatan Dharma, the ultimate law of nature. Chitta is the antakaran, the consciousness. We think, we imagine, we feel, and this is the process. The Chitta Shakti is about touching the dimension of our mind that is pure intelligence, unsullied by memory, untouched by identification. It is beyond ahankara, beyond buddhi, beyond judgment, beyond divisions, simply there, just like intelligence of the existence that makes everything happen beyond every kind of influence. This intuitive feeling, the aggregate of consciousness inherent in the ahankara, buddhi, and manas consciousness, is the yogic culture of the East. The human mind, the three aspects of chitta, that are the buddhi, which is the intellect. It just looks after the comforts, the conveniences, but there is an emptiness within all of us if we just look at the intellect. But it dissects like the knife. The ahankara works to protect one's identity. I am this. Caroline so rightly said, who am I? So this inquiry, it is the prejudice, strong belief, unsteady hand that holds the knife. Your stress, your suffering, your pain is all part of the ahankara that one has. And then there is the manas memory. It is the genetic, evolutionary, illusory memory, manomay kosha, it is called. That every cell carries a memory. It is the DNA, it is in the DNA. So when we talk of everything above this, the chitta, it is the awareness of this existential knowledge. So rightly talked about by Kashi, it is the microcosm and the microcosm. We are universe within the universe. So chitta is mind without memory, pure intelligence. This intelligence is like the cosmic intelligence, simply there. Everything happens because of it. It does not function out of memory. It simply functions. It is a way what you call cosmos in a living mind, not in the sense of the intellect, but in the sense of chitta. Chitta is that last point of the mind. It connects the basic of creation within you. It connects you with your consciousness. So this is a process of realization. Caroline rightly said, it is turning inwards. So keeping all identities aside, leaving all suffering and the fear of suffering, the enhancement of the inner blissful experience that life is trying to be human, to be above personal needs, to be placed above our own well-being, living in the moment. So the East, the wisdom of the East is very significant. It turns us and teaches us the biggest truth, the truth of turning inwards. Coming from the profound inner experience, from deeper dimensions of the intellect called chitta, which is beyond the thought process. But by enhancing this, you can perceive life. By turning inwards, you see inside, not like outwards. The five senses are helping us only to see the superior intellectual deductive logic. So there will be dissection. We will dissect everything into races, creeds, religions, and nationalities. There will be boundaries if we only use the intellect. So dharma is no religion. This is no way of division. When we walk full strided, explore inside, being blissful, where there is no fear of suffering, every experience within yourself, as Honorable Casey sir has himself experienced. So that is the inner dimension of wisdom, truly exploring the inner consciousness. So the Eastern Hinduism, this concept of dharma, this is not religion, it is law for cultural civilization. The Sanatan Dharma gives us this eternal law for human nature, law for governing the fundamental nature of humanity. It is the direction towards mukti, for and dharma is of scripts. It gives norms of the Eastern culture then is definitely the spiritual culture. Spirituality is the golden thread to hold humanity together. The East can be also said to have the approach of immanence, where God dwells within it, and we all are. If we see the mountains, the trees, the forest, the human beings, what I see are literally parts of God. So this is very pantheistic. And if we see at the Western approach, this is the approach of transcendence. So here you see that all the other things are external objects. You see that it is the wholly other. So the Western religious traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and many others, they depict God in this way, that God is the wholly other. So God thus transcends or rises above all the things in the world and is beyond even the cosmos itself. So this extension of the East is seen in the doctrine of our global solidarity, which is called the Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Vasudeva Kutumbakam is a Sanskrit phrase used in the Maha Upanishad. The whole world is one family, something that we need so much today. The Gayatri Mantra, it is the universal gratitude prayer. A Gayatri Mantra, it was found in the Rig Veda, mentioned in the Upanishads. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is the poem of the divine. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tatsar Viturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Yo Yona Prachodayat. So we meditate on that most adored Supreme Lord, the Creator, whose effulgence, the divine light, illumes all realms, physical, mental, as well as spiritual. May this divine light illume our intellect, is what is said in the prayer. The Om Shanti 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 Mantra, which is the utterance of the word Shanti at the end of every prayer. These Shanti mantras are the Vedic invocations beseeching the divinity in and around us. They vibrate the physical body, revitalize soul, cleanse the environment, bring tranquility and peace. So bringing to you the essence of Dharma, Astik and Nastik, and the explanation of the sacred Hindu Bhagavad Gita with reference to the Vedas and the Upanishads and other major Hindu texts is Pasayadana, a blissful experience of being humble, offering all of oneself and one's work for the betterment of mankind. That will prove how the philosophy percolates to the last grain of the soil, spread by saints and sages. So I'm bringing to you Pasayadana, one of the most wonderful blessings asked of the Almighty by Saint Jnaneshwar, who is regarded as one of the most respected saints in Maharashtra. And he was a great poet. At the tender age of mere 15 years, he completed the composition of Bhavartha Deepika in 9,000 OVs or stanzas. The Dhaneshwari interprets the Bhagavad Gita in the Advaita Vedanta tradition of Hinduism, where he has written it in layman's language, the Prakrit Marathi, at that time in 1290 AD. And it prevailed in Maharashtra. Dhaneshwari is considered to be a masterpiece in Marathi literature. And I will just now recite it. So at the end of the Dhaneshwari, Dhaneshwar asks for the blessings of the Almighty through this Pasayadana, which is considered as the summary of Dhaneshwari also. So it is Ata Vishwatmake Deve, Yene Vangye Toshave, Toshoni Mazadyave, Pasayadana, which means after completing the work of commenting on Bhagavad Gita through Dhaneshwari, Dhaneshwar appeals to the Almighty. He says that please be pleased with this yagna, this ritual, this sacrifice, this worship through the literature and shower on me your blessings. He says, Je Kharanchi Venkati Sando, Taya Satkarmi Rativadho, Bhuta Paras Pare Pado, Maitra Jivanse. In this stanza, he says, Dhaneshwar asks all from the Almighty for the bad ones. You may think, why ask blessings for the bad ones first? Why not for the good people? But here lies the greatness of this great saint. He is regarded as the mother of all people. In fact, most of the Maharashtrian saints regard the god as their mother. We say Vithu Mauli. And with this stanza in Pasayadana itself, Dhaneshwar's motherhood becomes quite apparent. So he says, a mother always cares and loves more for her weak or bad child than the strong one or the good child, because she knows the good ones will definitely prevail in this world, but the bad ones will be hated by one and all. The only place where they can find love and care is their mother's womb. So Dhaneshwar asks for the well-being of these bad children first. And moreover, he says, Je Kharanchi Venkati Sando, the bad or evil thoughts in the minds of these people should get destroyed. Quite interesting to note that he doesn't ask for the destruction of the bad ones here. Then he asks that these people should get themselves more involved in the good deeds. Again, note that he doesn't mention that they should start doing good things. He knows that, however, and how much a person be evil, there is always something good that resides within him. So, for example, Hitler was a dictator. He was a very good painter. So nobody is completely good or bad. If someone starts liking the good things and doing good deeds, his attraction towards the evil things automatically get reduced. So in the next line, he says, everyone should become close friends of each other. He involves all the living beings, minded, not just the human beings, all the living beings. And such a great dream of Dhaneshwar he sees for the well-being of all the universe. In the third stanza, he says, Duritan se timira jao, Vishwa swadharme sware paho, Soje wal tote laho, Rani mata. He says, the darkness of the evils, the sins, the evil thoughts and evil deeds should get vanished. And he doesn't mention about a particular religion here. He says all religion teaches their followers the way to live the happy life and serve others. So if a person follows the rules of his religion, he will be nice to others, will be empathetic, and always help others to become happy. So following the religion truly gives rise to such a glowing sun, which automatically destroys all the darkness created by the evils. In the next line, he says, He says that if this happens, each one in this world will get whatever he wants. Even if someone else gets, that one will still feel good about it. So by being empathetic. In the fourth stanza, he says, Varashata sakala mangali, Ishwar nishyanchi mandyari, anavarta bhumandari, bhetuyat bhuta. He says, such people which were mentioned in the earlier stanzas will always upon the one. Will be big crowds of good people who are true to God, who are true to self. So everywhere we find people who are true to the temporary or lasting things like money, good clothes, good food, good houses. So these are not permanent things. They keep running after these things all their lives, but never permanent thing which is there inside them is their being in this world, their spirit, which is the fraction of the Almighty, the God Himself. So streams of such people should flow everywhere on earth without any disruption, and every living being will be benefited from such people. In the next line, he says, Chala karpar tarun se arava, chetana chinta manin se gava, bolate je arnava, piyushatse. So he says such kalpatarus. Kalpataru is a tree scripted in the Hindu culture which fulfills all your desires. So he said these kalpatarus should be moving everywhere, giving people what they want. These people will be like chintamani. Chintamani is a precious stone in the Hindu culture, which automatically relieves the bearer of all the worries. So he says, and there will be colonies of such good people everywhere. These people will talk with like the oceans of Piyusha or Amrut. Now Piyusha is Amrut. Amrut is the elixir of life, immortality. So he says they will be spreading this Amrut everywhere through their teachings and sharing their thoughts in the world. These will be like oceans which will last forever. In the sixth line he says, Chandramaya je alanchana, martanda je tapahina, te sarvahi sada sujana, soyare hotu. So he says these people will be cool and pleasant like the moon, but will be spotless unlike the moon itself. These people will be like the sun in the noon, bright and glowing, destroying all darkness of the evils all over. But unlike the sun in the noon, they will not be exhibiting burning heat. They will be harmless to one and all, spreading the brightest list of the dharma qualities, good deeds and well-being all over. In the next line, he says, these people will be good to everyone at all times. It is not like good to one set of people, neutral to some other set of people, and bad to others. It is also not like only sometimes being good to others or sometimes not. It is good to all at all times. Such people would be close friends or relatives of all. In the seventh line, he says, Kimbauna sarva sukhi, purna houni tini loki, bajijo adarukhi, akhandita, adipuraki, akhandita. So he says, everyone will be enjoying all the happiness from all the three worlds. According to Hindu cosmology, the universe is divided into three worlds. The Swarga, where you have the heaven with 7 upper regions. You have Prithvi, where we are residing. And you have Patal. So that is the underworld or the netherworld. So he says, they will all be worshipping the Almighty at all time, while all will be following the rules of self-religion. In the last second line, he says, Ani granthopu jiviye, visheshi lokiye, drushta drushte vajiye, poaveji. He says, and in such a special world where Naneshwar dreams of, everybody will be having knowledge, the grantha, and their nourishment will be the upajivika. They will make victory over all the known and unknown knowledge. The good will always win over the evil, and all will be praying who will be explaining these granthas also will be benefiting by it. And in the last line, he says, Yetha manabe Shri Vishweshwarayo, ha hoila dan pasao, yene vari jnana deva, sukhi zhala. So on listening to this prayer from Jnaneshwar, his spiritual guru, Saint Navruttinath, who was also his elder brother, on behalf of the Almighty says, yes, this will really happen. Whatever you asked from the mankind through this Pasayadana will ultimately come true. So getting his nod, Sant Jnaneshwar becomes blissfully happy. Important to mention here is that soon after this, at the age of 21, Saint Jnaneshwar entered into a permanent state of Sanjeevan Samadhi. He felt that the mission of his life on this earth was complete. So on this view, we humans, East or West, can become enlightened about our part in this unified fabric. And we can call this as the nature mysticism. All experience this unity with nature. Spirituality of the East is that the golden thread that can hold humanity together and give it solace. The East and the West has so many similarities. We all have devotion and love, which are the easiest way to realize God. Love is very important in Christianity. Devotion, love, prayers, repetition of holy sacred names is common to all cultures. So a prayer dripped in the feeling of surrender is a direct access to the divine. So prayer is an inward quest, an intense desire for God's grace. Prayer lets out hatred and lets in love. Prayer lets out ego and lets in self. This can be the universal formula of peace, and this can be evolved. May no one deceive another, nor in any way scorn another, nor in any anger or ill will desire another's sorrow. So I conclude by reciting the Sanskrit prayer, the mantra from the Upanishad, Asato ma sadgamaya. Lead me from illusion to reality. Tamso ma jyotirgamaya. Lead me from ignorance to knowledge. Mrityurma amritam gamaya. Lead me from death to immortality. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. God, let their peace be peace, peace for all. Thank you. I hand over to you, Dr. Ram Sharma. Thank you so much, all the organizers.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Caroline, are you ready?
Yes. Okay, Dr. Ram Sharma is Associate Professor in Bagpat, UP, India, and Department Chair of English. He's a renowned poet and scholar, and I've been privileged to be working with him for 10 years in our Universal Peace Institute. And he has traveled here to the US several times, and most recently last year. And he has given talks here in the United States. And so with that, I'm turning it over to Dr. Ram.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am. I am the last speaker. I don't know how much eager you all are to listen to me. I would like to start my talk with the words of T.S. Eliot. He said, Indian philosophers' subtleties make most of the great European philosophers look like schoolboys. The origin of the word Hindu is more geographical than religious. This Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism is one of the oldest and the youngest religion. I don't know whether we can bifurcate Eastern or Western, because West is coming here and East is going in the West. So this is the mixing period. West is coming to the East and the East is going to the West. So we cannot purely bifurcate that this is East or this is West. This is my question. Although Rudyard Kipling has said, East is East and West is West, and never, never the twain shall meet. But I think it's not true. East is meeting with West, and West is meeting with East. We are seeing it. This is a global world. Europeans were too busy extracting resources from the newly discovered lands to learn much from their sages and seers. British scholars produced the first English translations of India's sacred text. It was William Jones who started Asiatic Society. Those books reached American shores, and Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and Walt Whitman read these books. Caroline, you mentioned Unitarians. I delivered talk at Unitarian Church, UU Church, Unitarian Fellowship. And these were the, I think, pioneer three names who started that Unitarian movement in US. And that movement was to respect all the religions. Am I right, Caroline?
Yes, you are. You're correct that the Unitarians were also the ones who invited Swami Vivekananda in 1893 and also invited Paramahansa Yogananda in 1920.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. India was exporting minerals, fabrics, cuisine, cheap labor, and its brain. Ralph Waldo Emerson had been the only American ever to read the sacred text of India. The Vedic impact on the nation would still have been huge. Emerson has been called the mind of America. Emerson, Thoreau, and Walt Whitman and millions of educated Americans have been touched by India since the mid-19th century. It's not easy that East has just reached to US, to the Western people. How much they might have worked hard to read those texts, to understand those texts. And I think this is a passion I am feeling. From the last 10 years, I'm visiting US and I'm working these people, and these people will be included in history. These are not simple people like Caroline or Casey Hughes or Ganganath or Baba Natras. They are the passionate torch bearers of Hinduism or Eastern philosophy in United States. I salute them. Their names will be certainly in history when the history will be written. Charles Wilkinson's translation of Bhagavad Gita and Asiatic Research Journal produced by British scholars like Sir William Jones and Henry Thomas Colebrook. These were the, I think, the foundations that how Bhagavad Gita were translated here in India and how it reached to United States. Pythagoras, pyramids, and Plato seem to have been influenced by Indian metaphysics, wrote historian Will Durant in our Oriental Heritage. According to Durant, Alexander was so much impressed by the yogis he came across there that he invited one to accompany him back to Greece. India's silk and spices attracted funding the Christopher Columbus voyage. 13th century Durant, Will Durant again says, I would like to quote from him what he says. The archetypal merchant gave a vivid description of yoga. Monier Williams, an esteemed professor of Sanskrit at Oxford University, wrote that purpose of translation was to aid in the conversion of the natives of India to the Christian religion. The German-born Muller, Max Muller, this is Max Muller, who never set foot in India, moved to Oxford in the mid-19th century and went on to produce a large number of books, including 51-volume series called The Sacred Books of the East. I don't know from where Dr. Sumumna has read that bad comment about Qurans, which she has quoted in her article. I would like to quote Max Muller's word, what he said. I'm quoting Max Muller. I spend my happiest hours in reading Vedantic books. These are the words said by Max Muller. In 1836, Emerson published seminal essay, Nature, that came to be called the Transcendentalist Manifesto. In much quoted passage in Walden Thoreau wrote, I'm quoting, "In the morning I bathe my intellect in the spontaneous cosmogonical philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, since whose composition years of gods have elapsed, and in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seems tiny and trivial." Unquote. Emerson called Leaves of Grass as mixture of Bhagavad Gita. Emerson's path was of Gyan, Janana. Thoreau's was of Karma, and Whitman's was of Bhakti. W.B. Yeats, T.S. Eliot, these were the writers who tried to produce the essence of Bhagavad Gita in their works. And it was, I think, the first monk who went to US. It was 1893, none other than Swami Vivekananda. He was the stealing star of that World Parliament of Religion, where he just said these words, "My brothers and sisters of America," all his history. He even had not the invitation, official invitation to attend that conference, and rest is history. I am proud to belong, I am quoting the words of Swami Vivekananda, "I am proud to belong to a religion that has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal tolerance, but we accept all religions to be true." Unquote. Harriet Monroe, the editor of well-known poetry journal, reported that the handsome monk in the orange robe gave us in perfect English a masterpiece. It was human eloquence at its highest pitch. Unquote. While many welcomed Vivekananda as an emissary of tolerance and progressive spirituality, conservative Christians denounced him as a threat to all that was good and true. So always there, if you want to do some good works, you will find that there are some of your opposition is happening. So you find some rivals, and some bad things start spreading when you start doing some good things. He stated at Vedanta Society in San Francisco in 1899. I have got the chance to visit that place at San Francisco, which this monastery was established by Swami Vivekananda. I visited with Caroline. The Vedanta Society never asked anyone to convert to Hinduism in its place. Everyone was encouraged to apply Vedantic ideas and yogic practice to his or her religion. And the Vedantic Society has centers at Seattle. I have also privileged to visit that center after my talk. My poetry reading and my talk at Unitarian Universalist Congregation at West Seattle in 2012. I visited that place. And the third center is at Chicago. Now I would like to mention this book, Autobiography of a Yogi, the book that changed the lives of millions. This is the most translated book of the world. Mukund Lal Ghosh, and he has a very much similarity. This is the year he was born. The same year Swami Vivekananda became history in US, 1893 at Gorakhpur. His father had a guru, Larry Masai. After that, after Swami Vivekananda, there was one professor of mathematics whose name is Swami Ramtirth. He went to US in 1902 and he remained there for 2 years and is known for his Vedantic knowledge. Paramahansa Yogananda reached in US at Boston in 1920, and we are celebrating this centenary year. We are feeling blessed. He reached there in 1920 and now it is 2020. His first speech is called The Science of Religion. He started Kriya Yoga. Yogananda is the face of Indian spirituality in America. 1946, this book was released, Autobiography of a Yogi. This book was released. In Hindi, it is called Yogi Kathamrit. हिंदी में योगी कथामृत के नाम से ये पुस्तक मौजूद है, हम पढ़ सकते हैं, हमें पढ़नी चाहिए. Yogananda passed away in March 7, 1952. He started self-realization fellowship. This is the seed which Paramahans Yogananda has sown in the fertile land of Hindu America, and now it is being flowered by Casey Hughes, Caroline Heising, Baba Nataraja, Ganganath. Even these people have changed their names. They have so much respect for our Indian culture. We are just saying, quoting, reading, but we are not following. What is spirituality? Spirituality is way of life. Until and unless we don't follow it, it is nothing. It is not a lesson. It is not a degree to be obtained. It is not a lecture to be read. It is something to be followed. It is something to be followed. Yogananda's guru was Sri Yukteswar ji. Later on, after Paramahansa Yogananda, one more name I would like to mention, Donald Walter, who is known as Swami Kriyananda, and he started Ananda movement. And I think Casey Hughes, I would like Casey Hughes to speak about this Ananda movement later in some of other our webinar. In 1949, Life magazine printed a 12 pages feature titled Holy Man. This holy man, Caroline Heising had told about it. It is none other than Swami Ramana Maharshi, the most revered saint of India of that time in 1949. I would like to mention this British soldier who later became so much impressed by our Eastern philosophy that he has written this book, In Search of Mystic India. And it is also available in Hindi, Gupt Bharat Ki Khoj, Paul Brunton. And this is a very, I think, a mystical story. He was a soldier and he was posted at Burma. He shot a opposite or a rival soldier by his gun, and he saw an old monk of 90 years staggering from that way. But after 5 minutes, he saw the soldier he shot, he got up and he's walking, and that saint is lying dead upon the ground. That incident is called Parkaya Parves. After that incident, Paul Brunton left that job and he started reading Indian philosophy, and he has written these two books, A Search in Secret India in 1934, The Secret Path in 1935.
मैं ज्वाइन हुआ वो ग्रीस वाले मैडम के इसमें से, और मैंने मेरी वाली आईडी से भी करके देखा.
Will you please keep quiet? I was muted here. I don't know how. Swami Mahesh Maharshi, another name that went to US, United States, and he went in 1967. And he started Transcendental Meditation, that is called TM. And he has his headquarters in Fairfield, Iowa, Maharshi Vedic University. I have a chance to visit that university with Caroline, and where she usually visit there, and she usually give talks and lectures and so many other engagements she has at that Maharshi Vedic University. So that Transcendental Meditation is still popular in US, another part of the country of US. And the Beatles, these famous singers were associated with Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, who has also his headquarters in Holland. Strong points of Mahesh Yogi, I think we should all listen to this. India needs to revive its spiritual tradition. The spirituality tends to be ignored today in the heat of the modern currents and Western ideologies. If India is to become strong and great, let her not sleep over spirituality, the science of very motive force of existence. These are the words of Maharshi Mahesh Yogi. Later on, we can mention A.C. Bhakti Vedant Swami Prabhupada, who has made a history by his ISKCON movement, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He is the only one person who has changed the whole world by his hard work. Later in 1978, Swami Muktananda went there. Sri Chinmoy Kumar Ghosh, he has also started Chinmoy Mission. In 1981, another legendary person went there, whose name is Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, who is known as Osho. And his history, his name is in Guinness books. He has 93 Rolls-Royce cars. That is a Guinness book world history. He's the only Saint Baba who has 93 Rolls-Royce cars. He has no bank account. He has 5 jets. He has 5 airports. And he has his ashrama in Portland, Oregon. His real name was Chandra Mohan Jain. Later on, Swami Rama. You all know it, Swami Rama, who is related with the Himalayan Institute. We are all taking Ayurvedic drugs of Himalaya. His center is at Rishikesh. Caroline has visited that place. And now if we come on the contemporaries, contemporary is David Fowle, who is named as Vamdev Sastri, Swami Ramdas, who has just died, Andrew Cohen, who has started this movement, what is enlightenment, George Harrison, who is related with Ravi Shankar, T.S. Eliot, learned Sanskrit and Pali. The main novelists who depicted Indian spirituality in their works are Herman Hesse, J.D. Salinger, and many more other novelists. This is not just a joke or a paper. These are the things how West affected, how East affected the West, and now it's the time of the West to affect East, to motivate us. Eckhart Tolle and Ama, Mata Amritmai Ma. Judith Lancaster founded Yoga Journal in 1975. That is a seminal journal still in LA. Hatha Yoga, Hape Yoga, Beach Yoga. These are the research and the works done by these Westerners. And these are the people who are reviving our Hinduism in the world. If it is dying in India, it is being revived in the Western countries. And I do hope it will revive. I would like to quote the words of Sri Yukteswarji, who was in favor of underlying unity between the scriptures of Christianity and Sanatan Dharma. I would like to quote his words. There is an essential unity in all religions, that there is no difference in the truths inculcated by various faiths. I unquote. I would like to, it's not finished. I would read my poem too. Just wait 5 minutes. These are the words of Mark Twain, what he has said. Our most valuable and most instructive materials in the history of man are treasured up in India. What these people are saying, these are really treasure, and I think that these are the encouraging words we should try to follow. Ralph Waldo Emerson, what he says, I owed a magnificent day. Spoke to us, nothing small or unworthy, but large, serene, consistent, the voice of an old intelligence, which in another age and climate had pondered and thus disposed of the same question which exercised us. Swami Vivekananda, I would like to finish it with Swami Vivekananda, what he says. And it is here and here alone that toleration and sympathy become practical. It is theoretical in every other country. It is theoretical in every other country. It is here and here alone that the Hindu builds mosques for the Mohammedans and churches for the Christians. I would like to finish my talk with this poem from this poetry collection, Lamp of Love. The name of the poem is Introspection. Oh man, why have you negated yourself? You always think of others. You always look at others. You always talk of defects of others. You always wander in dark street of ego and keep blaming others. When your ego is so very injured, you will even blame the stones, blame the path, blame all the people around, and the other person is your own reflection. You are seeing inside him what you have already seen in you. What are you cutting? The wings of consciousness. You are not able to see the vast sky within your soul, where each soul is one, and there is only oneness there. There is only oneness. We are all one. There is no east, there is no west. We are all one. Thank you very much, all the key speakers, my brother Casey Hughes, Dr. Caroline, Dr. Andriana, Dr. Umathe. I would like to thank all the three principals, Dr. Peswe, Dr. Sanjay Singh, Dr. Nayak, and all the listeners, enlightened listeners that they patiently waited till this time. I thank you all. Thank you very, very, very much. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And namaskaram to all. I think we have exceeding our time, so I invite, we'd rather keep the question sessions. Questions can be submitted directly to the experts through the email. And I invite Dr. Sanjay Singh to please propose vote of thanks.
Please start my video also.
Go ahead.
Please start my video also. It is
no. The button is there with you only. You have to start
no,
it.
The host has asked you. Yeah. The host has
sir, I send request on your screen.
Okay.
Has to start video.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see you.
Yeah. Dr. Sharma sir, you just began by saying whether people are ready to hear whatever you are saying because it's time now. We are delighted to listen from all five, you can say, spiritual teachers or spiritual scholars. Such an amazing lecture within a span of 2 hours. It was genuinely fresh and inspiring outlook towards human life, particularly regarding the Eastern influences on the West. All you speakers have presented your view in an excellent way and keeping up with the time that we were given. It's a privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I know it's dinner time now. All of you might be feeling hungry in India. So I would like to extend my special thanks to Cassie Hughes, Dr. Caroline Hazing, Andrea Madam, Kanan Madam, and my well-known Umathe Madam for giving such an inspiring and a spiritual discourse, as you can say, on today's topic of Eastern philosophies and the West. I would also like to extend my thanks to all the host principals, their management, their faculties, and all their volunteers for making this webinar such a success. And special thanks to Dr. Ram Sharma sir.
Thank you, sir,
for coordinating such
I thank you all three that you accepted whatever I give you the suggestions. So I thank you all, the three principals, and thank you very much. We will continue our efforts in the coming time because it's a crucial time India is facing.
Yeah, it was because
we
of
are
you,
all one. Yeah.
Because of you, Peshwe sir and Naik sir, that we could organize such an international level conference. So
we are
again,
all one. I thank you all. Yeah.
So once again, with the permission of the host, the organizers and all, I thank you, and with the permission of chair, I declare this seminar as the seminar has ended. Thank you all. Good night and good day.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sharma sir, we are 4 principals here.
Okay, sir, 4 principals. Okay, sir.
Dr. Tale is also there. Dr. Tale is also
Okay, sir.
there.
So I say my pranam to Dr. Taleji. Welcome, and I thank you.
I personally thank you all, all the panelists, all the participants, especially Caroline Madam, Andrea Madam, Casey Madam, Dr. Ram Sharma, and Dr. Tale, Dr. Sanjay Singh, Dr. Peshwe, Dr. Unnati Madam especially, and Kanan Madam, who joined us late, and Dr. Akhilesh Peshwe also. Thank you very much, sir.
So
Thank you for giving us such a wonderful opportunity.
We feel like a family now.
Yeah, we are a big family. Yeah, right, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and thank you all.
So all the best for all your good, can say, spiritual endeavors.
Yeah.
And
we
we
are
hope
trying
to
and
meet
trying
sometime
and
again.
helping each other. It's our duty to help each other during this crisis to motivate them to feel more spiritualized and more safe. So I thank you all the listeners and all the 4 principals and all the speakers. Thank you very, very much. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Hari Om, everyone, and blessings from America.
Hari Om, Hari Om, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Namaskar.
Om Shanti.
Thank you very much. Bye.